In Season of Discovery, there's a ton of different class changes and new spells being added into the game. Therefore, I've decided to put together this guide with many different tips and tricks that you will find useful when you're either leveling, doing different dungeons and raids, or maybe even PvPing in Ashenvale. So with all that being said, let's jump right into the first class, the Paladin. As a Paladin, you can now interrupt the target and prevent any spells in that school from being casted for the next 2 seconds. But sometimes you might not need to interrupt your current target, instead another nearby one. So what I would highly recommend you to do is to create a Mouseover Macro. This allows you to interrupt the target where your mouse is also placed. So even though I take the warrior here, then my mouse is placed on top of the priest and I can then interrupt the next cast or heal. Another rune we can also choose is Divine Sacrifice. 30% of all the damage taken by party members within 30 yards will be redirected to the Paladin. In PvE, you can use this together with your bubble. That way you prevent the damage you should take, but at the same time you still reduce the damage taken by the party member. And in PvP, you should just use your Divine Sacrifice without a bubble, and that way you will take damage, and this you can use to break yourself out of any incoming CC, for example a polymorph. Whenever I drop down to low health, then what I usually do is to quickly swap to a one-hand weapon and a shield, and then start healing myself. When you do a combination like this, then you'll have more armor because of the shield, so you'll reduce the melee damage you take and increase your chance of also surviving. To quickly swap to your one-hand weapon and shield, you just make a macro, and in the first line it will say /equip and the name of your one-hand weapon, and in the second line /equip and the name of your shield. Now you just drag the macro down to your action bar together with your one-hand weapon as well, and then you can easily swap in between the two different things. Whenever you pull too many enemies, it's always a bad decision to stand still and cast a slow heal. You'll most likely get interrupted and knocked back, and this will prevent you from doing the heal. Or well, when you finally cast the heal, you'll probably have taken more damage compared to the healing you receive. So it's way better to use a bubble and then cast your heal, or maybe even if you were clever enough, you cast your bubble and then a bandage. That way you will save mana, and this mana you can then spend on new spells. As a rogue, it's quite easy to do a 1 vs 1. But mastering a rogue, where you take care of many things at the same time, for example CCing another target or interrupting, is something that will be important if you also wish to master this class. When you're fighting a target, and if nearby targets is about to get close to you, then you should use your distract. This you can use on targets not in combat, so for example on a nearby patrol. This move should give you enough time to finish off your current target, and then you can get back into stealth and make sure you get away without dying. At low level, you unlock Gouge. It will generate 1 combo point and CC the target for 4 seconds. Enough time for you to manage to get some distance and use your ranged weapon. This trick can be so useful when you need to deal with a difficult target, but also in PvP, as you can then Gouge, make some distance, or maybe even use one of the new runes that allow you to use a pistol to slow the enemy's movement speed by 50% for 6 seconds. And this also awards a combo point. So when you combine it together with Gouge and this, then you will generate a lot of combo points, and then you can use it together with a new finishing move you can also learn from a rune. This will do a ranged attack and even stun the enemy. As I mentioned earlier, a good rogue knows how to deal with multiple targets at the same time, not just in PvP, also in PvE. And just like earlier, then I will use a Mouseover Macro to take care of these kind of things. All the different macros I'm talking about in this video, I will of course also leave in the description, so you can easily copy paste it into your game. So as you can see right here, I have a main target, but I still managed to deal with many other things on the other targets because of these Mouseover Macros. There's nothing more annoying than accidentally spamming your stealth ability and then breaking your stealth. But this you can easily fix by making something like this. /cast stealth. Allowing you to now spam this ability without breaking it if you're in stealth. And to make it even more insane, you can also make a second line with for example cheap shot or sap, and now you will instantly stealth and use this ability. As you can see right here, a stealth and a cheap shot the mage. Talking about mages, then this is also the next class on the list. And one insane trick is to use an AoE ability whenever you just need to kill a specific enemy with a lot of other nearby enemies. When you do a trick like this, you will attack all of them at the same time, and now you can just continue shooting at your main target and drag this away. Eventually all of the remaining enemies will also start to evade. This is also known as split pulling, but it's only a possibility as long as I pull with an AoE spell. If I used a single target spell, then all of them will now be linked together, and if I decide to attack my main target, then the remaining will continue to attack me and chase me, because all of them are linked together and will only evade at the exact same time. Ice Lance is a new spell we can choose that does triple damage against frozen targets. It's way better to use this spell together with a Frostbolt, so using a Nova and then a Frostbolt followed by an Ice Lance. By doing this combo, both spells will benefit from the target being frozen and have a way higher chance of critting, also known as a shatter crit. As this class, you have a ton of different ways to control the fight. Therefore, I also like to use a Mouseover Macro for my polymorph, but also Counterspell. And when I combine this together with two add-ons, Omni CC and Big Debuff, then I can easily track the CC I have on all the different targets. So when I do PvP or PvE, then I can track the duration above the target's nameplate. Next up is the Druid, and whenever you get slowed, rooted or snared, then you can just cast a new form. This will remove any of these effects. As a Druid, it's never a bad decision to level up first aid. When you get to low health, you can root the enemy, make some distance, and then use your bandage. So when you're healing with your bandages, then you get mana, and this you can use to get back into cat form or bear form, but now with a lot more health. In addition to this, as you're waiting for mana regen, then you can also swap to a weapon with spirit. So as you're leveling up, and if you find any weapons with spirit, then I would highly recommend you to keep these. Whenever I'm healing in a dungeon, then I like to place all my heal over time on the tank, and then either go into cat form and prowl, or just use my shadow meld. Because I did this, then I won't be in combat, and I won't be CC'd by any nearby targets, because yeah, they can't see me. Then when I break out of the stealth, I can continue healing, and now with full mana. As a druid, I like to use a macro that will automatically turn me into cat form and also use my prowl ability. So instead of having to press different keybinds, then I just press one button and it will do everything, and even prevent me from breaking my cat form or my stealth. If you would like this yourself, then all you need to do is just to go to the description below the video and copy paste it into your game. In Season of Discovery, we can also get a new spell, which is called Skull Bash. This will charge the enemy and prevent any spell in that skull from being casted for 2 seconds. And yeah, it will of course also interrupt the spell cast. Sometimes you might have to use this on another nearby target, but without having to swap your main target. So what I would do in this case would be to make a Mouseover macro, so you at any given time quickly can interrupt your Mouseover target. The Priest is one of the classes that will receive so many new spells in Classic Season of Discovery. For example, Shadow Word Death, an instant attack that will deal a high amount of damage and also deal damage to the priest if you don't manage to kill the target with the spell. But why the spell is so insane, at least in PvP, is mainly because you will take damage. So if a target is about to CC you, for example with a polymorph, then you can use Shadow Word Death on the target, and because polymorph lands and there's a delay on the damage you take, then the damage will also break the polymorph effect. The next one is not only for priest, but for any player that uses a wand. When you get a new wand, it might be an upgrade, but you gotta remember that different enemies might be immune to different schools or have resistance. So even though you get a big upgrade, then I would highly recommend you to always keep your previous wand, just in case you have to fight an enemy with a lot of resistance. Talking about wands, then I would also highlight something that is quite annoying. If you spam your wand ability, then it might also cancel the next shoot. Instead, what you should do would be to make a macro that says /cast shoot. Why this is going to be important is because what you can now do is to spam this. It will continue to cast your wand and try to cast it as fast as possible without cancelling the next one. The next one on this list is the warrior. And if you're not already familiar with hamstring kiting, then you gotta learn it right now. When you're fighting an enemy in melee, then the attack speed of that enemy might be a lot quicker compared to your slow two-hand weapon. So what you should be doing instead is to apply a hamstring and a rend and run away. And whenever your next auto attack is ready, then you will also be running into melee range. By doing this, you will prevent a lot of damage taken, because if you're standing in melee range all the time, then you will take a lot of additional damage. So just kite around, apply your hamstring, your rend, and do your auto attacks, and then kite again. After you end a fight, then you might also be low on health, but have a ton of extra rage. What you can do now is to activate your blood rage to keep yourself in combat and even generate even more rage. When you're in combat, then you won't lose any of the rage you have generated already, and then you can use a bandage to heal yourself. Now you have a ton of health, a ton of rage, and you're ready to continue leveling. If you're ever about to die, then swapping to a one-hand weapon and a shield, and maybe even going into defensive stance, might save your character's life. Therefore, I highly recommend you to make a macro where you in the first line type /equip the name of your one-hand weapon, and in the second line /equip and the name of your shield. Then you drag this down to your action bar, and the next time you press on it, you will swap to your one-hand weapon and shield. Shamans will receive so many different changes, being able to play as an elemental shaman with the new spell Lava Burst that will always crit if you have a flame shock on the target. But to make sure you never forget to apply your flame shock, then I would highly recommend you to make a cast sequence macro. So a macro that will use your flame shock followed by your lava burst, and it will always do this. Of course, you should always keep your flame shock and your lava burst ability on your action bars, but this is just one button and then you'll do both things. If you're used to playing a shaman, then you might also know that you can stack all your totems on top of each other. This is honestly quite easy. Your earth totem will always be placed at the top right, your fire totem at the top left, your water totem at the bottom right, and your air totem at the bottom left. So now you also know what totem you need to spawn and how you need to move your character to place them on top of each other. So the water totem here, I will have to move like this and a bit to the right when I need to place the air totem. And this is how you stack your totems together. In PvP, this is so amazing, because when they're stacked together, it's also a lot more difficult to hit the right one. And in the end, it could cause the other player to end up spending seconds to destroy the right totem, enough time for you to either get away or do a lot of damage. Your searing totem can also be your worst nightmare if there's a nearby enemy, as it will most likely start casting. If it's about to do this, then I would highly recommend you to spawn another one and continue to do this until you're out of range. Next on this list is the Warlock, and Fear is one of your best CC abilities, but it can also be so deadly if the enemy is running around and accidentally pulling a lot more. You can avoid this from happening simply by using your Curse of Recklessness. You might notice the target is still feared, but because of this curse, it will ignore the fear effect. The moment I then swap to another curse, then the fear will once again be applied, or will continue from the remaining seconds, and then I can just cast another fear. And whenever it's about to pull another enemy, then I just apply my Curse of Recklessness. You have heard of cast sequence before in this guide, but I would also like to use this as a Warlock. You will have many different ways to apply damage over time effects to your target, but instead of having to press many different key bindings, then you can just make a cast sequence macro. So first it will use, for example, Corruption, then Curse of Agony, and Scythian Life. So by just pressing one button, I can apply all my dots to a target, and then I just swap to another enemy and do the same procedure. As a Warlock, you also have your Rain of Fire ability, and this can be so useful when you just need to deal with one specific enemy. So if there's a lot of enemies close to each other, then you can pull with your Rain of Fire, and then the target you need to kill, you just apply your dots to. Because you attacked all of these at the same time with your AoE ability, then they're no longer linked together, and at some point all the enemies you don't attack will also evade. Next on this list is the Hunter, and this is also the final class in this guide. As a Hunter, you can now specifically only play as a melee hunter, or well, build your character to deal a lot of damage in melee. As a Hunter, you unlock different aspects, but instead of having to press different key bindings to activate these, then you can also make a cast sequence macro. So if I have two favorite aspects, then I just add them into the macro, and whenever I'm in one of these, then the other one will appear on the icon. So the current icon on your action bar will also be the aspect you swap to if you press the keybind. In classic Season of Discovery, weapon training will still be a thing, so you need to level up your weapon skills. And a quick way to do this is just to spam your wing clip, an instant attack that doesn't require that much mana, but because it's instant, then it also allows you to level up your weapon skill a lot quicker. At level 14, you unlock Eyes of the Beast. This is where you can control your pet and see it from their perspective. This can be so nice in case there's a ton of enemies and you would only like to just pull one specific one. Once you have pulled it, you will just move your pet back to your position and you can now take care of it without having to deal with all the other ones. Another useful low-level spell is Eagle Eye, where you can pretty much scout an area. But the thing is that you can only use this spell once, then you'll be taken back to your original location. But this can easily be changed with a macro. Type/cast Eagle Eye. What you can now do is to scout all over the place. You press it once, you will be taken to an area, and when you press it once again, you can just continue scouting without being taken back to your hunter's location. So that's also about it for these tricks. In the future, I'll post a lot more guides for Season of Discovery. On my channel, you can already find videos with different class changes, a class picking guide, and even my plans for Season of Discovery. So if you're interested in more content in the future, then make sure to subscribe to get notified the next time I post a video, and also help me reach 30,000 subscribers.